May 17th, 2024. And today I want to talk about when my drinking spiraled out of control. I think this is one of the, I've done videos like this in the past. And like I said, I'm trying to remake a bunch of these videos. I did one a long time ago, and I rambled on for like 20 minutes before I actually got to the point. So today I'm just going to get right into it. So when I really, realized that it had just gotten out of control, was when I started drinking in the mornings. And I think a lot of people out there could probably relate to what I'm talking about. But I've talked about this in the past, how our tolerance starts to rise, and as our tolerance starts to rise, our consumption starts to rise. And with our tolerance rising and our consumption rising, we're bringing in large amounts of alcohol into our bodies, and with that comes horrible hangovers. And I'm sure a lot of you guys out there can relate to that too. I used to drink vodka like it was water. I mean, I really did. But I would wake up in the morning with these horrible hangovers. I mean, incapacitating. I could not function the next day. I felt just horrible the next day. I'd wake up with this, splitting headache, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. I just felt like there were days when I wake up and I just I didn't even feel like I was in reality for some odd reason. I would wake up and I would see stars, and would feel really lightheaded. I would feel like I was going to pass out. And like I said, I just felt so bad. And one day I just decided to have a drink and see if that would fix it. And it did. And it all started off, I would just have a beer in the morning. I remember when that started happening. As a matter of fact, it started happening when I was in the restaurant industry, and this was right around the age 30, when it really started to develop a serious problem. Because we used to go in on the mornings on Mondays and do inventory every Monday, and we would go into work at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to count all the inventory that we had in the building. And Sunday nights was a big night for me, where I would really drink really heavily. And I know how stupid that sounds, because I knew I had to get up so early the next day, but I did it all the time. And every night before I had inventory, I would get just plastered. And it was like the end of the week, and I usually would do my inventory on Monday, and then I would take Tuesdays off. So all I had to do was make it through that Monday. And what I would often do is I would go in the morning, and I would be so hungover, I'd just throw something on really quick, go to work, do the inventory, count everything, and that would take like 2-3 hours. We would finish up, and then I would give the inventory sheet to my kitchen manager, and I would say, hey, go ahead, finish adding all this up, because you had to go through everything and line by line, make sure everything was correct, all that kind of stuff, add everything up. Everything had to be added up all the way to the other line. So if you might count chicken breast, it might be in 10 different locations, and so you would, each time that you would count chicken breast, you would write it down, and then you'd have to tally it up and then move it all the way over to the end so that whenever we went to enter the inventory into the computer system, somebody would call off. So they, we would just say 10, 20, 13, whatever, and I would often enter it into the computer as my kitchen manager would call off the inventory numbers to me. But like I said, as we finished the inventory, I would hand that inventory sheet over to my kitchen manager and tell him, hey, you go ahead and tally all this up, finish adding everything up, go through, make sure we didn't miss anything. I'm gonna run to the house and take a shower and put on my clothes. I wore a tie and everything back then. So I would run home, take a quick shower, and I remember when it started, I went home super hungover, and what did I do? I said, I'm gonna drink a beer. And that's what I did. I went home, and I specifically remember drinking a beer in the shower. And I just had one and went back to work and felt better. Well, the next time we did inventory, I did that again. Went up there, did the inventory, told the kitchen manager, tally it up, I'm gonna go home. Went home to change. Next time, I think I had like 2 beers. And started doing that, for weeks on end. And it was just on Mondays is when I really started doing that. Well, it worked so well that I started doing it every single day. So, I would get really drunk the night before, wake up the next morning, and at this point I had also transitioned over to liquor. I was still drinking beer, and I wasn't drinking liquor as much. I was probably doing like a 50-50. I was probably drinking beer, and then I would move over to liquor towards the end of the night. But it got to a point where I just really started drinking liquor, and I would just drink beer in the mornings. I didn't, for some reason, I had this wild idea that, I was, I guess, hydrating myself with the beer instead of drinking liquor. And I would just chug a couple beers in the morning, and I still can remember those mornings, drinking that beer. And back then, I wasn't at the point yet where I was throwing up every single day. And I remember how good those beers tasted in the morning, and just drinking. I used to drink them in the shower. That's when I did it. And it got to the point where I did that every single day. So what I would do is, and my wife and I would get up in the morning and start getting ready for work. I would go into the kitchen, grab like 2 beers, put them in my pants pocket. I'd go into the bathroom, close the bathroom door, and get into the shower. And I would take both the beers and set it up onto the little rack where the shampoo and all that kind of stuff went. And, while I was in there, I never just cracked my beer. I always had to, cough or sneeze, or, I was faking what I was doing. Or I would make some loud noise as I cracked the beer, because I didn't want my wife to hear me in there cracking beer at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning while I was getting in the shower. But that's when I knew it had started to spiral out of control, was when I started drinking early in the morning like that. And, it all started with one time, and then a week later I did it again, and then a week later I did it again, and that kind of compiled week after week, and then it started, then I did it the next day. So I did it that Monday, and then I did it that Tuesday. I woke up, on my day off, and I had a beer in that morning. And then it kind of progressed, and then it just started happening every single day. And then it got to the point, too, to where I would have a couple beers before I would leave for work in the morning. And I would take one with me. And I had this whole routine that I did every single day, where I had the beer in the center console of my car, and as soon as I pulled up into the parking lot, I would park my car, and before I would get out, I would chug my beer. I wasn't driving with it, but as I pulled in and parked, I would sit there in the parking lot and slam a beer before work. And then, as that progressed, and the thing is, you catch a buzz. There's nothing worse than drinking during the day and then stopping, because you just feel horrible after that. You catch a little buzz, and then to stop, you just don't feel well. So then what I started doing is, there was a beer cooler right across from my office, and I would go to the beer cooler, grab a beer, put it in my pocket, go back to the office, open it up, pour it into a cup, stick it back behind the computer monitor, and that kind of started progressing, and it would just happen all the time. I'd grab a beer, go back behind the dumpster, chug it, and this happened all day long. I would find these little moments where I could sneak off and have a beer. Well, the beer started to get to be too inconvenient for me, because it was just too much to hide. I'm sticking these huge beer bottles in my pockets, and this was back during the time of mini bottles as well. Still in my state, well, we still had mini bottles in the restaurant that I worked at. And I would grab a mini bottle or two and, sneak off into the bathroom or wherever I could find a little corner. And the freezer was always a place that I would hide to. I'd say I need to go in the freezer and grab something. And a lot of times as well, I would take mini bottles. Like, I would go to the liquor store, buy a sleeve of shooters, and then I I'd go into work, I'd have like my jacket on, going to work, walk in the freezer, and throw that little sleeve of shooters into the freezer in a box of French fries or somewhere I knew somebody wasn't going to go into it, and I'd leave it in there for the whole shift. And throughout the shift, I'd go into the freezer, grab a mini bottle, drink it, throw it back in the box, go back about my shift, 20-30 minutes later, I'm back in the freezer again, taking another shot. And this happened, every day. And it eventually started getting to the point to where, if I was working a night shift, I would hang out and just sit at the bar by myself in my own restaurant, just getting hammered. And I remember one time, it was a Sunday night, and this is when I really knew that my drinking had just gotten completely out of control. It was a Sunday night. I had inventory the next morning. I started drinking throughout my shift that Sunday night. And at the end of the night, I sat at the bar by myself and just drank, and ended up getting, blackout drunk. And next thing you know, the next morning, it's like 5 a.m. and my kitchen manager is waking me up. And I had passed out in one of the booths in the restaurant. And he came in, and I was over there just snoring away, and he didn't know what was going on. And when he walked in, he saw me over there passed out, and he woke me up, and he's like, "What's going on with you, man?" And he had a talk with me that morning and was like, "Hey, man, I think you might really need to slow down with your drinking." I'm like, "Oh, man, it's fine. I'm fine. No big deal. I just drank too much last night and decided not to go home. I didn't want to drive." Well, then I started doing that basically every Sunday night because I knew I had to get up and do inventory that morning. I didn't want to drive all the way home. I would just stay in the restaurant, and I made my own schedule, so I would schedule myself Sunday nights. I would close the restaurant down, drink, pass out in the restaurant, sleep in a booth, and then I'd wake up the next morning and do inventory. And then the whole morning, as I did my inventory, I would be in the cooler drinking beer while I did inventory. And my kitchen manager would see me. We were really good friends, and he would watch me do this. And looking back on it now, I'm just like, what in the world? Here I am, 5 o'clock in the morning in a cooler or a freezer doing inventory, drinking beer. But that's when I knew that, my drinking had started to spiral out of control. Was when it all started in the morning. My drinking had pretty much, it still was not not a healthy amount of drinking I was doing, because I was definitely drinking an unhealthy amount, and I was over drinking. But when it really got out of control was when I started drinking in the morning. And that started to progress over the years to where, I started drinking liquor in the morning, which is later on. And that's when it really, really started to get bad. And that's when I would wake up every day and throw up and all that kind of stuff. I was just drinking liquor all the time. And, and then it got to the point where I was just basically just drinking straight vodka. I didn't even see any point in wasting any pouring much. If I poured a mixer in there, it was a splash. People would watch me make drinks, and they would just be blown away. I did a video a long time ago where I showed a cup. And I used to take those big, like 32-ounce tumblers, like the Yeti cups, fill it halfway up with ice. I would fill that Yeti cup 3/4 of the way up with vodka, and then maybe a splash of Sprite or cranberry juice or tonic water or something like that. But, just something to give it a little bit of taste to it. But I was drinking straight liquor, and, all day long. And then towards the end of my drinking is when it just got really, really bad. I always had many bottles on me, a flask on me. There was always a bottle in my car at all times. There was always a bottle there. And I would go out to my car, refill my flask, or I would actually take those little mini bottles, like the little Fireball shots. I'd wash those out, refill those with vodka, and carry those around in my socks. It just got completely out of control there towards the end. I didn't go anywhere without a bottle on me. And, one of the biggest trademarks of an alcoholic, especially ones, you see a lot of times too, when the alcoholism gets really bad, is when people really just move over to vodka, because, it can pretty much be mixed with anything. And we have this idea that you can't smell it. I don't know why that is. But a lot of us do that, and what a lot of us do is we start pouring out water bottles and filling those up with vodka, thinking that people don't know what we're doing. And I would carry a water bottle around with me wherever I went, full of vodka, and just be drinking right out of it. I've talked about this, but I went to Disney World one time with my family, and I emptied out a Sprite bottle, one of those 20-ounce Sprite bottles, poured the whole Sprite out, filled it all the way up with vodka, and took it into the park with me. And got drunk in Disney World, drinking vodka. And I think I went and got like a cup of ice and another bottle of Sprite or something, and like mixed it up at the park. And I snuck that into the park and just got, annihilated with my family there. My wife was very upset with me that day. But that's when I knew my drinking had completely spiraled out of control, is when it all started in the morning. But anyway, guys, that's it for today. Like I said, I just wanted to remake this video and talk about that when I noticed that my drinking has spiraled out of control. If you're finding yourself drinking in the morning, that's a big indicator that there might be something going on there. Normal people just don't drink in the mornings like that, and especially if you're doing it every single day, that's indicative of a serious problem with AUD. And if you're doing that, I would definitely take a hard look at myself in the mirror and think about it might be time to make a change. So, guys, I love y'all so much. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. I hope everybody has a wonderful day today, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.